Wednesday edition of the show. Hump Day! All across America on SportsMap Radio. All over the world on the SportsMap Radio app. Boy, it feels like every loss the A's have had lately has been a one-run loss. I don't know why I'm infatuated with them. But it feels like every loss lately for the A's has been by one run. And I think they've lost now 7 or 8 in a row after winning 7 in a row. Just thought that was kind of interesting. A lot to do over the next 3 hours. There's always a lot to do over these busy 3 hours. And, of course, we'll talk about it all with you at 1-800-224-2004. Weigh in on the phones if you choose. 800-224-2004. Or you can text the show at 888-670-8549. 888-670-8549. That's the number to get us on the text line, 888-670-8549. I created a text line just for my listeners. That is a number that is exclusive to this show. You can't use it on any other show. It just goes to me. So check out the text line if you want to hit us up at all as we move through the program tonight. A lot to get into, as I said. I got something funny, something different we're going to do tonight. Lon McCarron's going to stop by the show. It's a Wednesday. Of course. It's a Wednesday. The draft isn't until tomorrow. NFL is, basically dormant other than the news of people getting in trouble and some free agent signings here and there. We might do some NFL on the show tonight. We'll wait and see. But to me, the real story, in sports right now, it's mostly just baseball and the draft. And hey, you know what there is tonight? The AHL Calder Cup Finals, Game 7 tonight. Only the 12th time in the history of the AHL that they've had a Game 7. I know it's crazy to say that the hockey season is not over until the AHL says so. Yep. We've got the Coachella Valley Firebirds tonight, playing against the Hershey Bears. So you've got these two AHL teams. Seattle Kraken is the Coachella Valley Firebirds, which is 15 minutes away from where I live here in Palm Springs, California. It's their first year. So I figure it's just worth mentioning tonight as we start the show. And the Hershey Bears are the AHL affiliate for the Washington Capitals. So you have the Capitals and the Kraken tonight in the AHL Calder Cup Final. Who you got, Charles Carter, producer, engineer, working the show tonight? Okay. Well, that'd be the Firebirds then. The Coachella Valley Firebirds. Yeah. We're going with the Firebirds tonight, of course. Packed house. They got over 10,000 people in the arena. And that's what I'm watching tonight because there's not much else that is worth all that getting excited about. I was reading something interesting today. Fun, just something fun to start the show with today, because again, there's not a day where there's one like crazy, overwhelming headline that if we don't touch on it, we would be derelict in our duties. I was looking at something today, and I was watching I was doing the usual prep work I do before the show, and I saw this video of Bryson DeChambeau at the U.S. Open. Now, this guy's always going to be a lightning rod for criticism. He's a jerk, and he's always acted like a jerk. And then he went to Live Golf, and he continued to act like a jerk. Then he went on TV and did an interview recently when Live and PGA Tour merged, and they asked him about, all the things that the Saudis have done that, are not necessarily things you'd want to be associated with. And he basically said, well, we all just need to get along. We all need to come together. Basically completely overlooking the question and just trying to, put his head in the sand about all the things the Saudi regime has been sort of connected to that is not something that shines the greatest positive light on them. So this was Bryson DeChambeau at the U.S. Open over the weekend, getting heckled by a fan because he is a notoriously slow player. Take a listen.
Still timing? Because they just walked off the green, buddy. You're still timing? Okay, thank you. Still timing? Because I just walked off the green, buddy. You're still timing? Okay, thank you.
So somebody was heckling him because they were timing him, and he decided to chirp back about the fact that they are, timing him for slow play. But this wasn't like a PGA Tour official or anything. Bryson just could not ignore him. He just had to keep talking about it. So Christopher Powers was the reporter who shared the clip on Twitter. And it got me to thinking, this is obviously something that would be frowned upon on the PGA Tour. Something that's not allowed. You cannot just sit there and heckle players. It's not like Happy Gilmore, where the guy goes, "You're going to miss this putt, you jackass." You can't do that. You can't do that. But it got me wondering, if you could, and this is our question of the night, the question du jour, 888-670-8549 on the text line, 888-670-8549. You could also call it in, 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. If you could change one rule or add one rule, alter one thing in any sport, what would it be? I think in golf it would be great if there was always noise. Like, that's the one thing Live Golf, people are talking all the time. There's music playing. Don't call me a Live Golf fan. I'm not. But I like the idea of just music, noise. Like when Happy Gilmore gets ready to hit his drive during the movie Happy Gilmore, when he gets ready to hit the ball, Adam Sandler's like, "Come on, I need a little noise. Let's go." If you could change one rule in any sport, only one, what would it be? You got one, Charles? All right, go ahead. Yes. It's a good one. It's not a fun one, but it's a good one. Yeah, that's not a bad rule. That's not a bad rule at all. Somebody, you do have to come off the field. Is that in every instance? See, I didn't know it was the rule necessarily in the NFL. I knew it was in college, but I didn't know it was necessarily the rule in the NFL. You could very well be right that it is. Because as I can sit here and remember, I do remember people sort of running off the field when they have an equipment issue. They got to run off and come back on. So that kind of makes sense. Yeah, no, that I can definitely understand that would be a point of contention for some, especially if it winds up being a big play. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. I don't know, and it's funny. I bring up this question, and while I joke around about I'd like to see noise in golf, but if there was like a real one that I could change, if they had the robotic umpire thing down to a science, the home plate umpire, and boy, oh boy, did they need it in New York tonight. Now, the Yankees won tonight. Yankees win. Yankees win. So I love, obviously the Yankees. And we'll get New York in later on. But Phil Cuzzi was the home plate umpire in tonight's Yankees-Seattle Mariners game. And he has the second worst rate of calling strikes that are outside the strike zone. Like, he is notoriously bad. He's consistent, though, that you could get a couple of inches off the plate with him. And the Seattle hitters tonight were bearing the brunt of that. Like, it really didn't seem to happen much on the Yankee side. And maybe just because they were aggressive against Luis Castillo, who they were able to get some hits off of. But, I mean, Phil Cuzzi was really bad tonight. And if there was ever a case to be made for automated strike zone, which Rob Manfred said is not coming next year to Major League Baseball, they're still playing with it in the minor leagues. And according to minor league players who have then come up to the major leagues, it isn't really something that is effective yet. Like, they still think it needs to be tweaked, that the zone needs to be tweaked. And that continues to be a problem at the minor league level. So until they get it completely figured out, that's obviously that's something that isn't going to come to Major League Baseball. That system has to be perfected before you take a home plate umpire and basically say your only job now is to call out safe at home or maybe check swings. You know, other than that, you're basically irrelevant as the home plate umpire. But I still think that the automated strike zone, which Bobby Valentine was the first one to ever float this idea publicly, you know, baseball people. I remember having Bobby Valentine on my show when I was on NBC Sports Radio about 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. And he said it, and it made news, and people laughed at him. The idea of an automated strike zone. And now it exists in the minors, and it will one day exist in the major leagues. It's just a question of when, not if. But if you could change one rule, what would it be? Let me know. 1-800-224-2004 or text us at 888-670-8549. 888-670-8549. You could tweet at me as well. I'm at the back page on Twitter. Speaking of, well, I don't know how we make the segue to cheating, but we'll do it next on the Cash In. Stay with us. Oh, that's good. No, I would dip them in ketchup. The ketchup they have at Gastropub is really good ketchup. Like, you could tell it's not just regular ketchup. Oh, look, you having another Spindrift. I've had none. I've had 0 Spindrift. They're like potato skins. Look at that.
They are. They're essentially thinly sliced potatoes that they deep fry. They do them very well.
Look, that's the last Spindrift?
Yes.
I didn't get a single one.
I'll buy more.
Wow.
I'll buy more.
Wow.
Next time I'll buy it.
Wow. What's it say about a marriage when your husband drinks the entire 8-pack of Spindrift? I agree. I think it's grounds for divorce. Yeah. Is this all the potato? Was this all the French fries?
Yeah.
Wow.
There weren't that many, you know.
I'm surprised he's not standing under me.
No, he followed me in here. Did you see the price of it?
Oh, that was a breakaway opportunity. A penalty? Wow. Taking me back with this one. Must be the money. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure. I got to think that one over. Thinking doesn't sound good on the radio. I was questioning my marriage during the break. Again, I've been forced to question my marriage. Yeah. Husband bought an 8-pack of this like flavored seltzer water that I love. 8-pack. He drank the whole 8-pack. I never got a single can. Not a single can. It's moments like that where you got to, after almost 8 years of marriage, you got to start wondering if perhaps the signals are being sent. Just putting it out there. I did not rage punch the wall, but it's a great way to get people to go on and watch the show, which you could. There you go, on Twitter at the back page if you want to watch us. On Twitch, Jason Page 77 if you're on Twitch. Also on Facebook and YouTube. Just look for the Cash In with Jason Page. Simple as that. Coming up in 14 minutes, something a little different on the show tonight. I started to talk about this before, and then I didn't finish the thought. I'm ADD boy tonight. Lon McCarron is going to join the show. If you do not know who Lon McCarron is, then you don't watch poker on television. He is the preeminent poker play-by-play guy, hand-by-hand guy, card-by-card guy. Well, I guess you make plays in poker, so you could say play-by-play. But Lon McCarron has been the World Series of Poker play-by-play guy forever. Like 20 years? It's got to be at least 20 years that Lon McCarron has been the play-by-play voice for the World Series of Poker, which used to be over on ESPN. Now it's over on, breakaway opportunity. Now it's on CBS Sports, which means it's on Paramount Plus. It wasn't the greatest thing in the world to happen to the World Series of Poker to move off of ESPN. And the fact of the matter is ESPN just didn't have room for them, so they had to go somewhere. But they went to CBS Sports, which meant they were streaming, and it meant they weren't on a broadcast channel like ESPN. And it means a whole lot less eyeballs are seeing poker than ever before. None of that is the point of this whole thing. The reason I'm having Lon McCarron on, besides the fact that he's a friend, he shouldn't be a friend, but he is a friend. And I'll explain that in a second. There is a gigantic cheating controversy going on right now in the world of poker. And again, if you don't follow poker, you may not, if you're a casual observer of poker, maybe you liked watching the World Series of Poker when it was on ESPN. So there's this poker pro named Martin Cabral who had a heated moment recently with another poker pro, Dan Smith, after he was eliminated from the World Series of Poker in the $250,000 Super High Roller Bowl. Recently. Smith and Cabral did battle in Smith's final hand of the night, as Fox News adequately describes the action. Cabral eliminated Smith with a pair of sixes, and as Smith left the table, he took shots at Cabral. Good luck, most of you. I hope you get barred, Smith said as he pointed to Cabral. The point of contention is the fact that there is allegations being lodged at this player, Martin Cabral, that he is marking cards, which is a manner of cheating in poker. If you mark a card and you mark it in a certain way in a certain spot to denote what that card is. For instance, if you marked it in the upper right-hand corner, you might be saying that is you mark the top of the back of the card, you might be saying that's an ace. Or you might be saying that's a 10, or just giving you some sense of what that card is. So if you see another person with that card in their hand, or if they're close enough to you that you could see that mark on the card, you now know what that person is holding. And there's all sorts of different ways of potentially marking cards. But this has become such a huge controversy at the World Series of Poker that, well, listen for yourself and have the bleep button ready just in case here, Charles Carter.
All in.
All of it.
Count, please.
That he doesn't have too much, but maybe considering a call.
We'll fast forward to where the
10-6 of diamonds.
I have your card, so no fun for you. But good luck then.
And the 10-6
6
suited for Cabral.
Right? Still good.
So after this player gets eliminated, watch what happens, or listen to what happens here.
It's an 8 on the turn. You see the 6 outs for Smith on the top of your screen, looking for an ace or a queen, or will be eliminated at the hands of Martin Cabral. It's paint, but it's a king.
GG then.
Good luck, most of you. I hope you get barred.
I will be what?
Hope you get barred.
What does it mean?
Banned.
Why?
Your antics are the worst anyone I've ever.
So he said, I hope you get banned. And some of it is the fact that they think he's marking cards. Some of it is his behavior at the table. And it's gotten so bad that the World Series of Poker has actually jumped in and said, all right, we're going to investigate Martin Cabral. And if it's determined, you know, his behavior is unbecoming, we're going to ban him. Simple as that. And there's a lot of other people that sort of feel the same way, that it's time to just ban him altogether. And that could get messy for a lot of different reasons. So I wanted to bring in the guy who literally covers poker and is around this game more than just about anybody. Lon McCarron will join us coming up in about 8 minutes on the show. And we'll talk to him about the World Series of Poker itself, and the first year for the World Series of Poker without one of the all-time greats in the history of poker. Doyle Brunson passed away in between last year's World Series of Poker and this year's World Series of Poker. So Texas Dolly is not a part of the event. I want to ask him for some recollections on Doyle Brunson. So we'll do that coming up. But again, you know, here's the thing about cheating in poker. And I say this as somebody who plays poker. Used to play a lot. Used to play probably too much. As a poker player, your job, part of what you do as a poker player, is deceive people. It's lie. So it's not a stretch to believe that any poker player is trying to gain an upper hand in some way, shape, or form. You ever play poker, Charles? Like poker, like Texas Hold'em? Any good? Yeah, no, I only play to take people's money. I only know, I don't know how to do anything for fun. Everything I do is strictly to win. If I'm playing poker, we used to have this car. So when I used to live in Brooklyn, we used to live in this loft building in Brooklyn, this old warehouse, like an old factory. The Eldert Lofts was the name. Lived there, and somebody decided to start a card game. And they thought it was going to be a friendly card game until they invited me to play in the game. And I made it very clear from the start, I don't play for fun. If I'm playing to take your money. Thank you, Herm. Because it's no fun losing. If losing is fun to you, you are a loser. I absolutely feel that 100% in my heart. Show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser in life. Truth. Just hashtag truth bomb. So I don't play to lose. You know, there is no half-ass in it in poker. You're either playing or you're not playing. You know, and I only know how to play the game correctly and by the percentages and know how to make certain moves. So a lot of times I would win these little sit and go tournaments that they would have in my building. Sorry, not sorry. Just how it is. So we'll get into the Martin Cabral controversy going on over at the World Series of Poker and see what Lon McCarron has to say about it, as well as the World Series of Poker at large, and how poker sort of came out of COVID. Because there was a time when you couldn't even play poker in person. So we'll get into that with Lon McCarron coming up. 1-800-224-2004 is the telephone number. If you want to text us from anywhere in America, 888-670-8549. The text line is open, 888-670-8549. We're back with Lon on the other side. It's the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Raining? Oh, nice. Coachella Valley's up 1-0, baby. Let's go. Let's say hello to our good friend Kurt Heel.
It would be putting an actual mark or indentation. It would be putting.
Wake up call. Oh, I'm dealing with a bad gout attack today. Oh. Medication. Colchicine. Yep, it is. Hold on. What? Not in a million years, baby. Not in a million years. Never. Never. Never in a million years. I would never in a million years. Woo! Woo! Coachella Valley firing bullets. All right. And joined by Lon McCarron, who does a great job with CBS Sports Paramount Plus on the World Series of Poker, their longtime announcer. All right, Lon, talking about Martin Cabral, this whole marking cards controversy investigation. Explain to the people at home what marking cards is all about.
It would be putting an actual mark or indentation on a physical card on the back of it that you could later identify if some other player were holding that same card. And there are a number of ways, apparently, that you can do it. One is a physical indentation somewhere that perhaps only you would notice, or you can put a substance on the card that could possibly be read by special sunglasses or perhaps even contact lenses, or a physical something that makes a little imperfection in the card that you can see visibly. So that's what I've heard. There may be other ways, but that is kind of the going concern right now with Martin.
Is this something, though, as somebody who's been around the sport for a long time and been around the game for a long time and been around poker pros and, it has real in-depth knowledge of this stuff. Is this something that you've heard of frequently? Is it something that, this is the first time you've heard of a pro doing it? Like, try and give me some perspective on, how often you hear of these things.
Historically, I've heard about it happening in non-tournament poker games that we call cash games, where they have private games or games that are not live streamed or televised. The fact that the accusations are coming and they're saying he's doing this when you've got a worldwide audience watching this live is a little extraordinary in the sense that Martin Cabral certainly knows who's watching, not only the people, but the other players who are not in the tournament directors, tournament officials, Caesars Corporation, who owns the World Series of Poker. They're all watching this. So the fact that he was accused of doing it post-haste, and the fact that some of the decks were taken out of play during the final table of this event and checked and nothing found, leads one to believe that Martin might be playing his reputation for all it's worth.
Yeah, he might be just trolling people and as much as anybody, poker's a psychological game. I mean, if you could have people believing that you're trying to get an upper hand, it's almost as lethal as if you actually were cheating.
Exactly. And that's where this story has gone now, where because there is no physical evidence for Martin to do what he does, and because there have been prior allegations for Martin doing this, and because Martin is very, very aware of these allegations and how players react to this speech aggravating, annoying type of activity that he's doing by standing up when it's his turn to act and pretending or actually looking at an opponent's cards, gets them thinking that maybe he's looking for the mark he put on it. So he could be, as they call, leveling. He knows what they know, what he knows. There's all these kind of levels, how many who knows he knows type levels there are. So, and that's where it's gone, because a lot of pros are saying, yes, there was no evidence on the cards of him marking the cards, or even with a sticky substance. In some clips, you can see him picking up his finger and the card kind of coming with him for a fraction of an inch or so. Now they're taking on the tack that it is beyond the pale and beyond the World Series guidelines of how you conduct yourself by fake cheating, as it were, and getting into people's heads. But that is a very gray area, and it's one that the World Series of Poker officials really can't take to the bank right now to ban the people. And I must say, they are taking this very seriously. They have it under consideration. But like any casino, they're not going to tell you how they know what they know, or ultimately what they know. If they ban a player, it'll be up to the player or the gambler, if it's outside the house, to tell everybody what's going on. So they're going to be pretty mum, and that's just the casino world.
Yeah, and you know what the reality is of this, Lon? who would be dumb enough with all the cameras that are in these casinos, especially at something like the World Series of Poker? Who's going to be dumb enough to literally sit there and cheat with all the video that's available to these guys, all the surveillance? I find it hard to believe that this isn't just Martin Cabral, basically trolling everybody because they think he might be, cheating, or he might have some upper hand. I don't know. I'm curious to see
No,
what
I
the
agree with you.
investigation reveals.
I'm in your camp on that, Jason, because the players when they busted out of the tournament in their post game interview saying, he's rude, he's annoying, he's been doing this a long time. And Justin Bonomo, a very famous top pro who has a strong opinion on a lot of things, came out and was talking today about that aspect of him taking on this persona and expanding it in the biggest moments. And this was the biggest buy-in tournament. It took $250,000 just to enter the tournament for each player. So there's a lot of money up for grabs. And he was saying if he's going to be using this persona and then exacerbating it at these moments, that crosses a line of fairness, as it were. But again, I think is a wide gray area. And I don't know that you can ban a player because there can be, some legal ramifications
Sure.
against casinos, and Caesars, if they were to do that without any strong evidence, whether you're just being a bad guy. And we've seen guys in the past who are big talkers, Jamie Gold and William Kasu. They made a rule for Jamie Gold years ago, the Jamie Gold rule, the year after he won the main event in 06. He talked his way into a lot of hands and pots and everything like that. And they said they kind of cut down on the speech play. And then Will Kasu came a few years ago and kind of redefined it. And now maybe there's just another aspect of that.
How has the World Series of Poker and the poker world come out of COVID?
Healthy, very healthy. People were pining for live poker when things started opening up, and the fields all around the world, the live events were huge. Tournament directors were overrun with players trying to keep the players who filled the tables and then alternates who are waiting to get into tournaments after seats opened up. The World Series is really planning on beating their record for the biggest main event attendance ever. They're probably looking at 10,000 plus players at the main event this year. The fields in the other events that began in May and going all through June and beginning July and all the way through the middle of July, they're having tremendous fields, and the purses are up, the people are there, and everybody's happy in the new venue as well. So so far so good.
Before I let you go, I haven't talked to you I haven't talked to you on camera in a while. I wanted to get a thought from you on, this World Series of Poker, which I think now will be the first one without Doyle Brunson. In terms of, since his passing, you've been around this game a long time. Talk about what he meant to the game and how his passing obviously impacts so many people.
Yeah, Doyle Brunson was not just impactful on the game. He was the game. And we are trying to compare him to sports legends, like Babe Ruth, Bobby Orr, Maurice Richard in hockey, whatever. And he even goes beyond that because he was there from the beginning of the World Series of Poker. And it is all him. What poker is today has come so much on the shoulders of Doyle Brunson and what he has thought was good for the game. He's always has been in contact with the World Series of Poker folks and World Poker Tour. Any other major poker tour owes a lot to Doyle and how the game was shaped, how the tournaments were shaped, what should be happening for the good of the players, for the good of the event, etc. And so it's one of the few guys, literally, you cannot say enough good about what Doyle meant to the game and how much he meant to the game. And one of the greatest aspects of that is that you look at who he played with and who he beat, and you got old grainy black and white photos. You've got photos from the beginning of the poker boom in 2003, 4, and 5. And right up to this year or late last year, he's playing the highest stakes poker with the best players in the world, giving them the needle. He tweeted out a picture. He says, I played like 80 straight days in Bobby's room, a cash game in Vegas. And thanks to the guys, he tweeted a picture of a new Cadillac Escalade he had bought from the money he had won from them. So he still had the needle right to the end, still had his spark, still had, the skills needed to be a successful poker player right to the end. And he's going to be sorely missed. He was a great guy.
Yeah. And I started it late because there was a button I didn't hit on my side. So I'm going to replay that interview in the last hour correctly and use that one for the podcast. Don't use the one I just did because obviously I screwed it up royally. All right. I might even replay Kurt Heelan in the second hour tonight just because there's just not a heck of a lot going on. Ooh. Hey, very much. Ooh. This dog wants something. You should see him right now.
What you want, Doogie Moogie? What you want? You pee just now, so he's not urgent.
He's just sitting there like he's watching TV. My dog is too funny. Cheaters justice. You ever seen the movie Casino? Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci. It's such a great movie. But there's a scene in it where a guy that Robert De Niro is, runs this casino, the Tangiers Casino in Vegas. It's back in the 80s. And they catch a player at one of the blackjack tables cheating. And he's got a partner, and they're signaling each other and using this elaborate system and stuff like that. And just before they can cash out with their chips, they get pulled into the office. And a guy takes out a hammer, and he goes, which hand do you shuffle your chips with? And he says, well, my right. He goes, can you shuffle them with both? He goes, no. And he takes out a hammer, and literally just right in that moment, takes out a hammer and just smashes his hand with the hammer. And the guy screams, oh, no. And then they bring in the guy that he was partnered with that was doing the cheating at the table, that was actually playing the cards. And he comes in and goes, look what they did to my hand. And Robert De Niro looks at the guy. He goes, you could either have your chips and the hammer, or you can just walk out. But you can't have both. You could either have the chips. You could have the chips and the hammer, or you could walk out. But you can't have one or the other. And the guy's like, I'll just leave. And Robert De Niro's like, you're damn right you will. And tell all your buddies you ain't ever going to cheat in this casino again. And it just reminded me of that when I was thinking of cheating at a poker table. Cheater's justice. But again, like I said, poker is a game that is built around deception. You're playing with a bunch of liars. I mean, very few people are honest poker players. Very few people show their hands. And if they do, they're usually doing it just to needle you, that they just bluffed you off a great hand. So it's kind of interesting to me to hear this whole conversation of, somebody might be cheating. Oh my God. Everybody's always trying to get an edge playing poker. Doesn't surprise me in the least that there's a controversy like this. What surprises me is the fact that it doesn't happen more often, because there are all kinds of cheaters out there. There's all kinds of cheaters out there when you're talking about poker. I mean, theoretically, is it cheating? If somebody next to me is lifting their cards too high, right? If the player next to me is lifting his whole cards too high, and I got to tell you, this happens all the time when I play. So where I live is filled with a lot of older people, we'll just say. People of a certain delicate age. And if I go to play poker before noon at the big casino that has a poker room here in the Palm Springs area, Agua Caliente, if I go play there, I am almost assuredly going to be playing next to somebody who's 20 to 25 years older than me. We'll say 20 years older. So I'll put them in their mid-60s. And every time they go to look at their cards, they don't bend their head down to see the cards or cover it with another hand. They just simply lift them up. And if I casually look to my left, I can see what they have. Every single hand. Does that make me a cheater if I look? Charles, does that make me a cheater? They're giving me information. They're being reckless with their cards. That's like a different, it's like a social security number, only you get a different one every hand. You wouldn't show your social security number to somebody. Why are you going to show your cards? Oh, wow. Wow. Right now, if I found $1 million on the ground, I'm probably keeping it. And I am not ashamed to. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit that. I would probably keep it, because if somebody would, well, then it gets into, if somebody was dumb enough to lose $1 million, they shouldn't be having it. And if somebody was walking around with that much money and could lose it like that, they probably could afford to lose it, right? Like $1 million signed check, fill in the blank. I found somebody's credit card at the dog park one time. I immediately cut it up, though. I just decided to cut it up rather than. Yeah, sure. Okay. Was it a green one, a gold one, a black? Oh, black. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yep, probably has no limit. Yep. Just put it back on the ground. That is great. Lon McCarron should not even be friends with me. I've told this story in the past, but not on this show. So, true story. 2012 or 2011? 2012. It was 2012. I had just left ESPN Radio in Hartford. I was working for ESPN Radio in New York City, hosting on the in market number 1 in this country. It was a thrill of a lifetime. It was just weekends, but it was fun. It was right before I went to NBC Sports Radio and had a syndicated show there. And I was one of a few people that was in the mix to be the play-by-play voice for the PBA Tour on ESPN. True story. Now, anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge bowling fanatic. I've bowled forever. I've bowled semi-competitively. Not semi-competitive. I've bowled competitively, but I've bowled in tournaments and things like that. Like I'm pretty accomplished as a bowler. But this would have been a dream job for me. And I got my name into the race kind of late for this play-by-play job. And a couple weeks after, waiting to hear around, see if I got the job, I find out that they gave the job to Lon McCarron. And I love Lon to death. And I'm not speaking out of turn because I've said this to him. Lon doesn't really know all that much about bowling. But he got the play-by-play job. And due partly to the fact that he was already with ESPN and doing stuff for them on the World Series of Poker. So he was a known entity. He's been around the industry a long time. Lon got the job. First, Gary Thorne had it, I think, the year before or the year after or something like that. It was Gary Thorne, Lon McCarron, and me. Lon gets the job, and I'm watching like literally the first or second broadcast that he does. And he threw some sort of terminology out there that showed he really knew nothing about poker. Like it would be almost as if somebody hit a grand slam in baseball and the announcer said, "Wow, it's a 4-run home run." Like it was something like that Lon said. And being a jerk, which I have a tendency to be, I immediately went on Twitter and I mocked Lon McCarron for what he said during this bowling broadcast on ESPN. Of course, because I'm a jerk. Of course I did. So I mocked him. Matter of fact, I might even be able to, as scary as it is, I might actually be able to pull up the tweet because, once it's on Twitter, it never really goes away. But let me see here. Let's see if I can find it. 2019, no. How far? Well, anyway, I made this joke. So this would have been 2012, probably. Let's see if I can find it here real quick. Point is, I was a jerk. And Lon's response to it wasn't to like fire back something rude or even block me on Twitter. What he said to me was, "Hey, next time I'm in town, maybe you can give me some pointers on bowling. Help me with some of the terminology." Like he could have been a jerk and just fired at me and said something terrible, but he didn't do that. He didn't do that. And would you know, the next time he came to New York, he and I had dinner, and we've been friends ever since. True story. There aren't a lot of people that are like that. All right, we're coming back. Hour number 2 right around the corner. I'm Jason Page. Wednesday edition of the Cash In. SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Oh, here it is. Here's the exact tweet. I said, shaking my head. Lon McCarron just called the place where the Masters is being held a bowling alley. Lon, it hasn't been called that in 15 years. They're called bowling centers. So I wrote that. And he wrote, it was built a bowling alley, so ... And I replied, just telling you as a sportscaster and a bowler, hope you're well, love your work on poker, be well. He said, thanks. Been trying to say center, but it slips out once in a while. Don't even remember that one. Thanks. And we've been friends ever since. Like, after that, sent me some other stuff, but pretty cool stuff. Oh, he knew. He knew full well I was trying to be a jerk. Yeah, he knew I was trying to be a jerk. Hey, Google, set the thermostat to 74 degrees. ESPN Radio fired its national morning show this morning. Keyshawn Johnson, Max Kellerman. Yeah, that morning show's going bye-bye. What do you mean? They did. They fired. They're getting rid of the morning show. Yeah. Yeah, ESPN Radio, the national show that's on in the mornings with Max Kellerman and Keyshawn Johnson, that's going away. Yeah. They're just trying to save money. That you coughing? Yeah, I'm just making sure that wasn't in the promo. What? I hear you, but I hear the commercial too. So it's hard to hear you. Madness. Madness, I tell you. I was born in the darkness. Yeah. What? Never saw Tombstone. Another hour of the show starts right now. Apparently, I'm a bad person because I've never seen the movie Tombstone. You talking like Gene Hackman? Is that who's in that? Charles Carter? Wait, but no, tell me. Am I saying the right movie? Is that the one? Yeah. But I'm saying, no, is Gene Hackman in Tombstone? You don't even know who's in the movie and you're worried about me not seeing it? 1993. Tombstone. Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton. Kurt Russell's in it. That's who's in it. Charlton Heston, Jason Priestley. I've never seen it. As a matter of fact, no, I have definitely never seen it. Kurt Russell is Wyatt Earp. Now we need an alarm. Hyperbole alert! Hyperbole alert! Be-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo. This is a hyperbole alert on the cash-in with Jason Page. But this is a hyperbole alert. Anytime somebody says to you, the best thing ever, it's like Donald Trump. I make the greatest deals ever. Anytime somebody says that, I automatically just, no. If somebody says something's the best ever, The pink drink is the greatest drink ever in the history of Starbucks drinks. That's beyond. See, that's beyond. Did you try it? You still didn't even try it, so you can't knock it. When people get hyperbolic is the word you were looking for. Yeah, there you go. It's okay. Yeah, so Val Kilmer was in it. Sam Elliott. It's a good cast. Bill Paxton, no longer with us. Charlton Heston, which of course gives me the opportunity to
Damn you all to hell!
damn dirty apes. It's great. Oh, the Planet of the Apes movies with Mark Wahlberg? Oh, yeah. No, of course not. Billy Bob Thornton. There's a lot of big names in that movie. Billy Zane is in that movie. I can only think of Billy Zane as one thing, and it's the villain in the movie Titanic. By the way, speaking of the Titanic, they still haven't found that submersible that's floating around somewhere out there. And they're down to 5 hours of oxygen, something like that. Although there's no real, the funny thing is, and not funny, funny, interesting. There's no real way to test. There's no real way to know exactly how much oxygen is left in that thing because nobody ever comes back to tell you. You don't know if you run out of oxygen at, 96 hours, 98 hours, 97 hours. So it could be give or take an hour. It's like nobody really knows how much oxygen is in that thing. And they actually had an expert on TV today who said something interesting. It isn't the lack of oxygen that'll kill them. It is carbon dioxide that will ultimately kill them. So, not that makes anybody feel better about the situation, but just saying. That's the killer in this situation is the carbon dioxide. But we'll see. We'll see if there's any new news tonight. They did hear tapping every 30 minutes yesterday, and they heard more tapping this morning. Now that could have been the sounds of the people on the submersible smashing the head of the guy whose company it was into the side of the thing repeatedly, saying, hey, if any of us are dying, you're going to be the first one to go, buddy, since you put us on this thing. Just saying. If I was on that, I'd already be done. I would have opened the hatch. I'd open the hatch. I'd just be like, I'm done. I'm done, man. If I'm going to go, at least I'll be down here with the people from the Titanic. Something like that. There's got to be panic. I mean, there's just no way. I heard the thing actually has a toilet on it. That thing actually has a toilet on it, believe it or not. It's true. It's true. So earlier in the show, we asked a question tonight. If you could change one thing, if there is one thing you could change in sports, what would it be? If you could change one rule. We were talking about Major League Baseball umpires, and I was like, robotic strike zone might be the one that I do. Because I just want them to get the strike zone right. The strike zone is so subjective in baseball. Every umpire is a different grade. Every umpire is a different strike zone, and you've got to figure it out as a hitter. There's just not a lot of consistency in it. Got a text from Isaac in Jeffersonville, Indiana. That could be a new one. That is why they are umpires, he said. They are paid to make all relevant judgment calls. A throng of people, evil-eyed, disapproved Eric Gregg. Well, yeah. I mean, if you look in this day and age, and I'm friends with a former Major League Baseball umpire. We're friends on Facebook, and I've had him on the show before. And he was a great umpire for a long time. He hates the automated strike zone. Actually, it's not that he hates the automated strike zone. What he hates is on television, the box. Umpires hate the box because they will tell you all day that the box isn't accurate. That, the box can't possibly be accurate. And they'll claim to the high heavens that, the box is what gets more umpires in trouble because it's not a fair representation of what the actual strike zone is. Now, take that what you may. It just, that's what they say. Isaac in Jeffersonville, Indiana, I appreciate the text tonight. Not text from Gaffney, South Carolina. There we go. Not hyperbole. Tombstone is arguably the best Western ever. Who? Gaffney, South Carolina. Okay. Still not going to watch it. It's not. It's fine. 24 seconds into the second period, by the way. Coachella Valley Firebirds, the Seattle Kraken's AHL affiliate, with a 2-0 lead on the Hershey Bears. They are 39 minutes and 36 seconds away from winning an AHL Calder Cup title in their first year of minor league hockey. This is like, AAA baseball, basically. And by the way, before people poo-poo the fact that I'm talking about this game, I think it's actually on NHL Network tonight. They're actually showing this game. They're showing it in Seattle on Root Sports up there. Like, this thing is getting played in a lot of places. So there'd be a fair number of people watching the Calder Cup final tonight. So there's nothing else on TV. What else are you watching tonight? The draft is tomorrow night. After the first 3 picks, nobody's going to pay attention. Nobody's going to care after the first 3 picks. You're going to watch the ratings plummet. Wait until the first 3 picks of that thing is done. Nobody's going to watch. There's 2 games going on in Major League Baseball right now. Dodgers and Angels going at it in Anaheim at the Big A. And San Francisco and San Diego are locking horns tonight, bottom of the 5th in San Francisco. It's 1-0 Giants out in front. Everything else is final tonight. Toronto beat Miami 6-3. Of note in that game, Luis Arraez, 2 for 5. His average at .398 on the season. You just think about how hard it is to hit 400. I mean, you got to have 2 hits all the time. And even on a night like tonight, 2 for 5 is exactly 400. I mean, you got to have 2, 3, 4 hits all the time. You have 1 0 for 5, and your average drops like 6 points. It's tough, man. It is tough, but Toronto beat Miami tonight. 6-3 was the final. Sandy Alcantara is not having a good year at all. This is supposed to be one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's 2-6 this year, 5.08 ERA. This is supposed to be one of the best pitchers in the game. Whip is 1.25. That is not whipping it good. You like that? No, maybe not. Okay, fair enough. There is news from the NBA that I want to get to tonight. We will play back our conversation with Kurt Heelan, where we talked about some of the big deals in the NBA, also the draft. But there is other draft-related, NBA-related news that I want to get to coming up on the other side. The Celtics trying to improve their roster after a season in which they came up short of expectations. There was a talk between the Wizards, Celtics, and Clippers, a 3-way deal. One team is out of the equation. We'll tell you who it is. The latest reporting on it when we come back on the Cash In. I'm Jason Page. This is SportsMap Radio.
Game number 99 this season for Coachella Valley. They played 26 of a possible 27 games in the playoffs. Tack that on to a 72-game regular season. Shot by Iorio off the high glass. Garrett Pilon working against the boards with Brogan Rafferty. Rafferty on the clear out to center ice. You probably throw a couple exhibition games in there as well. At least for some of the Courier. On the line for over the line for Wayne. Working behind the net. Bumps around with Iorio. Garrett Pilon scoops it back up for Hershey. Bounces off the stick of True. True can't find it. Lucas Johansson gets there first for Hershey. Collision behind the net. It's an Iorio. Dumps it in. Pass was intended for Connor McMichael. A little bit too far. Icing against Hershey. Yeah, the Firebirds are doing a good job of taking away the neutral zone and forcing Hershey to try and stretch plays out with long passes.
Maybe.
They're just not able to complete those passes right now. Face it off inside the Firebirds offensive zone. 20 shots for the Firebirds, 15 for the Bears. It's kind of similar to what we saw back in Game 6 for these Coachella Valley Firebirds, keeping the Bears chances out of middle. Puts it off the stick of Ponoralski, goes out of play. Yeah, they did a really good job of keeping pucks to the outside and making sure that if they did get a chance, it was a one and done. And they've done the same thing here tonight. They're keeping pucks to the outside. They're not giving the Bears the middle of the ice. And it makes it hard on Hershey trying to get any kind of offensive creativity out of that. 16:09 to go in the second period. We'll see what the Bears change up here. Down by a couple of goals. We've seen them kind of lose their way when they get to a decent deficit. Well, they try and create offense by maybe giving up some on their defensive side. They're a very good defensive team, and I think they get out of their comfort zone when they get behind by a couple of goals. McElrath spins it around the center ice. All the way down to the Firebird zone. Joey DeCourt plays it on the backhand. Bounces off the stick of Cameron Hughes to the left point. McElrath with some room. A shot blocked by Gustav Bolch.
Wow.
Second chance saved by Joey DeCourt as he got to the top of the crease. Yeah, really good job.
Nice.
The first one was a great block.
Very nice.
For the rebound. A
basketball. Have you watched that new White Men Can't Jump spinoff? Is anybody, not spinoff, but like a reboot, a remake of it? Yeah, I haven't seen it. I don't know if it's on like Hulu. I'm not even sure what it's on. Oh, it's on Hulu. See, that's the problem. I don't have Hulu. If Hulu wants to sponsor the show, then they can give it to me, and I'll talk all day about Hulu. But Hulu doesn't. I got the TV on. I'm watching the hockey game. Yeah, but Hulu doesn't sponsor the show, and they want to give me a subscription and sponsor the show. Then I'll go watch White Men Can't Jump on Hulu. But I'm a mercenary, man. Mercenaries get paid. That's it. Simple as that. You guys want to text the show? We've already had a couple tonight. 888-670-8549 from anywhere in America. 888-670-8549. If you've seen Tombstone and you want to vouch for its being very good, as producer engineer Charles Carter says it is, then knock yourself out. It's just not. It's not my thing. We'll do some NBA. Kurt Heelan on the other side, my conversation with him from yesterday's show on the draft and some of the big news surrounding the draft. But also, there is news tonight from the NBA of relevance, and that is involving this deal with the Celtics. There was a 3-team deal that was reportedly set up between the Celtics, the Clippers, and Wizards that would have seen the Celtics get Kristaps Porzingis. Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting now that deal has fallen apart. The Wizards are still working on ways to get Porzingis to the Celtics in an opt-in and trade scenario, but it will not be the three-way deal with LA, according to reporting from ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. The Clippers would have gotten let's try that again. The Clippers would have gotten Malcolm Brogdon in the deal. The Wizards would have received Marcus Morris, Amir Coffey, and the 30th pick in this year's draft from the Clippers, along with forward Danilo Gallinari from Boston. Can you believe that when I tell you what I'm about to tell you, it's going to blow your mind? Kristaps Porzingis is only 28 years old. I thought the dude was at least 30. Right? Feels like he's been around forever, but you forget he came into the league really young. He will turn 28 on August 2nd. Had arguably the best season of his career this year in Washington. Career high in points, 23.2. 8.5 rebounds a game, almost 3 assists, 1.5 blocks, 65 games for the Wizards. 4th overall pick in the 2016 NBA draft. Wow, it's been that long. So 7 years. Yeah, it would have been 21. Just feels like he's a lot older than that. So for now, that deal is a no-go, but we'll see if anything gets done before the draft tomorrow night. I think Porzingis, on the Celtics would be great. You get bigs that can stretch the floor. I'm not talking, Al Horford is nice and all, but Al Horford at this stage of his career is not Kristaps Porzingis. I like Al Horford. He does some good things for you. But Kristaps Porzingis, he is not. And you're basically getting Porzingis if you're the Celtics. I mean, you could almost, if they keep Jaylen Brown, you could almost call it a big three in Boston. I know we kind of shy away from that now because it almost has a negative connotation to it. But if you put Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, and Jason Tatum on the floor together, wow. I mean, that is a dynamic threesome. Well, he only played 65 games, so he must have had some injuries. But then again, some of that could be just load management in this day and age in the NBA. But that dude can still play. He's still a really good player. I loved him with the Knicks. I was sad when the Knicks watched him go to Dallas, play for the Mavericks. So the 3-team deal is off as of now. We'll see if anything happens before the draft tomorrow night. And again, tomorrow night's draft, it's really about 3 players. Where will Brandon Miller go? Where will Scoot Henderson go? One of them's going to go 2. The other's going to go 3. Will somebody move up to get that pick, to get a Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller? The Hornets GM is playing coy right now. He's not saying which player they're going to go with. General manager Mitch Kupchak, formerly the general manager of the Lakers, says he'll use the number 2 pick on one of 2 players. Not ruling out the idea of trading down, though, either. And again, there's been talk about New Orleans trying to move up. There's been talk about Portland maybe moving down. And there's something big's going to happen on the trade front tomorrow before this draft. You can count on it. But earlier this week, Adrian Wojnarowski reported that the Hornets were down to Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson, which is, again, the obvious choices. Both of them were in Charlotte for a private workout on Monday. They should have had the guys play one-on-one and just decide that way. I would have liked that idea. Just throw them in a cage. Welcome to Thunderdome. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Well, one of them is going to be the second pick. And, the afterthought of this draft, really, when all is said and done. Kupchak said, I anticipate we would take the pick at 2, but I'm not going to rule out the possibility that we wouldn't trade the pick. It's a very coveted pick in our league right now. You'd be surprised at some of the phone calls and players that I believe would be available. Now, again, he could be playing coy. That's almost too much of a tell for it to be real to me. That's so much information that it makes me question whether or not that's real. So up until the last minute, he said, we are going to listen, but at this moment, I do expect to take the pick at 2. And from the get-go, Brandon Miller has been thought to be the better pick for the Hornets. Because Scoot Henderson plays the same position as LaMelo Ball. He's going to be a point guard. And I don't think they've given up on LaMelo Ball yet, despite the fact that he has had a host of injury issues. Not as bad as Lonzo Ball, but there's talk Lonzo Ball may not ever play again. That's terrible. It really is. Went to Chicago, and it's just gone all downhill for him since he got there. Nothing related to going to Chicago. It just so happened that he's been hit with the injury bug ever since he got there. Hornets haven't made the playoffs, by the way, since 2016. He said, I don't think we're at the stage where we're good enough to focus on fit. Next year, knock on wood, we're healthy. We might be getting close where we could look a little bit more to fit. So he's telling you Scoot Henderson is in play. But again, how much of that is for show, just to scare teams who might want Scoot Henderson into offering a better price for that second pick? And then whatever's left over, Portland will get. So they'll either get Brandon Miller or they'll wind up with Scoot Henderson. Problem with the Brandon Miller stuff is he's linked to that whole Alabama Darius Miles handgun that was used to kill a woman. So there's definitely some character issues there when it comes to Brandon Miller. Kupchak would not speak about the character issues with Miller. Police officer testified Darius Miles texted Miller asking him to bring Miles' gun in the early morning hours of January 15th, which is the day he shot and killed this woman. Miller wasn't charged with any crime, and the university has described him as a cooperating witness. But, I mean, think about it. Your teammate says, bring my gun, and you decide to bring it down. It just, again, it screams character issues, but this league has already made its bed when it comes to bad character guys and rolling the dice on whether or not those guys are good enough to help them, whether that outweighs the risks involved. Kurt Heelan on the other side, my conversation with him on the NBA draft and some of the news around the league. I'm Jason Page. The cashing continues on SportsMap Radio.
It would be.
Let's say hello to our good friend Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. He joins us tonight fresh off the NBA Finals, and boy, not much rest for you. I mean, Ja Morant news comes down. He gets suspended for 25 games. Let's run through a bunch of them here. Start, because I don't think I've had you on the air since the Ja news broke. He gets 25 games, and the reaction from most people is he got off easy, Kurt. And I know from a financial standpoint he's not. He's going to lose a whole bunch of money as a result of this. But in terms of the number of games suspended, the league kind of gets it both ways. They get him back when people actually start paying attention to the NBA season. And, Memphis gets him back in some sort of time to actually do something next year.
Yeah, exactly. First off, pick up Desmond Bain for your fantasy teams out there. Somebody's got to pick up the first half of the season. Yeah, look, he's still back. It's tough to say. December would be the time. Would be the time frame. 25 games in, but they get him back at a relatively, like you said, when people really start paying attention to the league. He can't qualify now under the new rules. He's going to miss too many games to qualify for All NBA again or anything like that. He gets this is good. I think it was $7.6 million financial hit, but Jason, he basically got a $39 million financial hit with the last one by not making an All NBA team. That's not what he appears to have gotten through to him. So we'll see if this sends sends a message isn't even how I want to phrase that. Like, helps him find a path to a more mature version of himself might be a better way of phrasing it. Because it's not like he broke laws or anything, but for a guy who can make a lot of money off his brand and image, he's kind of risking it here.
But what blows my mind, I don't care that he didn't break any laws. He knew what the consequences were going to be.
Yes.
If he did something stupid again, and he still did it. He did not have the self-control. He did not have the maturity to prevent it from happening. Let's say hello to our good friend Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. He joins us tonight, fresh off the NBA Finals, and boy, not much rest for you. I mean, Ja Morant news comes down. He gets suspended for 25 games. Let's run through a bunch of them here. Start, because I don't think I've had you on the air since the Ja news broke. He gets 25 games, and the reaction from most people is he got off easy, Kurt. And I know from a financial standpoint, he's not. He's going to lose a whole bunch of money as a result of this. But in terms of the number of games suspended, the league kind of gets it both ways. They get him back when people actually start paying attention to the NBA season. And, Memphis gets him back in some sort of time to actually do something next year.
Yeah, exactly. First off, pick up Desmond Bain for your fantasy teams out there. Somebody's got to pick up the scoring in the first half of the season. Yeah, look, he's still back. It's tough to say. December would be the time. Would be the time frame. 25 games in, but they get him back at a relatively, like you said, when people really start paying attention to the league. He can't qualify now under the new rules. He's going to miss too many games to qualify for All NBA again or anything like that. He gets this is good. I think it was $7.6 million financial hit. But Jason, he basically got a $39 million financial hit with the last one by not making an All NBA team. That's not what he appears to have gotten through to him. So we'll see if this sends sends a message isn't even how I want to phrase that. Like, helps him find a path to a more mature version of himself might be a better way of phrasing it. Because it's not like he broke laws or anything, but for a guy who can make a lot of money off his brand and image, he's kind of risking it here.
But what blows my mind, I don't care that he didn't break any laws. He knew what the consequences were going to be.
Yes.
If he did something stupid again, and he still did it. He did not have the self-control. He did not have the maturity to prevent it from happening again. And it was literally just a couple of months after the first transgression, which got him suspended, on top of all the other off-the-court stuff that's happened with him. I mean, I just wonder what Memphis is thinking in the back of their heads. We hear the news about, the Pelicans getting ready to potentially move on from Zion Williamson for a number of reasons, some of it off the court, some of his inability to stay healthy, and maybe the idea that they've just given up that he's ever going to be the star and realize the potential. At some point, you have to ask the question, what does Memphis do here? Do they just ride this out until he plays himself out of the league or gets himself suspended for a year? What do they do?
Yeah, I don't think they're all the way. The Zion thing is much more of a concern that he's not physically just not ever going to be able to do this or not willing to do the work that will get him in position to be on the court. It's a different issue. But on the flip side of that, look, as much as he's proved it on the court, as much as Ja Morant has been that guy on the court for a fair number of games, it's a concern, especially if we're going to let Dillon Brooks go because he's hurting the team with how he's playing and the image and all, not just the image, but what he's bringing to the court and the attitude that's kind of crossing the line. He's hurting us. Well, Ja's hurting them now. And at what point do his teammates and some other people, I don't know, and maybe they have done this. Like, I don't know we don't know what's been said to him by Steven Adams and the other leaders of that team. But, at some point, man, you're hurting other guys' paychecks. You're going to know about it.
Yeah, you certainly are. Move from him to Zion Williamson. There's all this talk that the Pelicans are trying to move, hell and earth to try and get him traded for the second overall pick in the draft, maybe the third pick. I don't know. Where are we right now with this? Has anybody made a meaningful offer to the Pelicans for Zion Williamson?
I don't know that there's been anything meaningful yet because, look, you and I know this. We talk about this kind of every year. Look, this time of year, there's a lot of smoke. There's just everybody's kind of trying to spin things and it's a Cypress Hill concert. It's just there's smoke everywhere. This is the hardest one to figure out because there is distinctly people who are like, and there are unquestionably people in the organization frustrated with him to the point that they're ready to move on. But is that the decision makers, and is that team really ready to give up on a guy who is a minimum top 15, maybe probably top 10 player in the league when he's healthy, when he's on the floor, as little as, the 34, 35% or whatever it is of games he's played. When he's on the floor, man, he's so good. And it's hard to walk away from that kind of talent unless you think Scoot Henderson could be something close to that. And I think we'll find out. There's such mixed signals coming out of New Orleans that I don't know what's going to happen. My guess is they keep him, but it's a guess, and I'm not sure.
Talk about burying the lead. The Chris Paul trade for Bradley Beal, whole bunch of draft picks swapping hands as well, with Beal headed to Phoenix, and of course Chris Paul headed to Washington temporarily until there's some sort of buyout or a deal or whatever winds up happening there. Start with the Phoenix side of this. It's great. They have, Chris Paul, they have Bradley Beal, they have Devin Booker, they have Kevin Durant, and they're going to have a bunch of guys playing at the minimum around them because I don't know how they're going to afford to put anybody around them.
They can't. And did you watch the playoffs? Because I watched it, and I saw Denver bounce them because of depth. They were the only team to take 2 games off of them because Kevin Durant and Devin Booker had big games. But that's not enough if you're going to win a championship, if you're going to beat the elite. And Denver's the bar in the West. They are not – that's now the bar, man. They are not going anywhere for the next several years. They've got guys locked in. They're good to go. I don't know that the 3-star model going into a CBA specifically designed to keep teams from doing this, they think they're kind of gaming the system by getting in early, but they're just not going to have much depth. And the penalties and their ability to build around, keep a team functional around them become onerous over the next couple of years. So their window is really small. I get why they did it, by the way. Like they got Bradley Beal for nothing, really nothing. And they weren't good. This is an upgrade over Chris Paul. Like they are better. I just don't think it's going to be enough as opposed to finding a way to just keep Booker and Durant healthy and just put depth around them.
Does DeAndre Ayton wind up being moved in all of this?
Probably. The problem is there's just not much of a market for him. There's not a lot of teams. Man, if you're paying your center $30 million, they better be very, very good. Because honestly, Ivica Zubac with those Clippers makes $11 million. I would much rather play Zubac $11 million, even if he's not quite as good as Ayton. He's closed it up for $30 million, and that's kind of where everybody is. It's a mercenary position. I can get somebody for the mid-level or less who can do enough of Ayton. He's just not good enough to pay $30 million. So there's not much of a market, but eventually I think they move him. What they want is, and maybe it's closer to the deadline, they move him somewhere for a couple of people, 2 $15 million salaries that balance it out. But it becomes harder. The longer they wait, the harder it becomes to trade that salary under the new CBA too. So I think they'd like to. There's no market, Jason.
Where does Chris Paul want to go, Kurt?
Los Angeles. Lakers, Clippers, doesn't matter. I would say it doesn't matter. I think he probably has an internal preference. He is close to LeBron. He certainly has ties to the Clippers. Either way, though, he just wants to be back in Los Angeles with his family. And I would be shocked if that's not where he is at the start of next season with one of those 2 teams.
I got to be honest. If I'm the Lakers and I have a choice between figuring out a way to get Kyrie Irving on that team or Chris Paul, and I don't like either of them for totally different reasons, but for 1 year and trying to win a title with this group is currently comprised, it's got to be Kyrie Irving. It can't be Chris Paul.
Kyrie is a better player right now, but he comes with financial. They just can't make it work financially. He wants to get paid. And if Kyrie, rephrase it, if Chris Paul comes to the Lakers, it's most likely because he bought out, and then signed for either the minimum or one of the smaller exceptions. He's not going to get paid. He's going to make not much money, and he'll have to live off the $30 million buyout somehow. But remember, with Irving, he opted in last year because of the money. He forced his way out because they wouldn't give him an extension. He wants to get paid. The only team that can pay him is Dallas. I'd be surprised if it's anything else because he'd have to take the same half-measure deal with the Lakers, and he's just not going to do it. He just wants to get paid.
Can I hold you for a minute? I got a couple more I want to ask you, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, is hanging out with us. We'll come back. I'll ask him a few more questions, maybe a couple more, and get him out. Let him go to sleep. I'm Jason Page. It's the Cash In, SportsMap Radio. All right, we're in the break. Let me mute the mic so nobody hears our off-the-air conversation. For him. On the show. All right, Kurt. So the draft is on Thursday. Wemby, obviously, number one. And I guess I want to get your thoughts. I don't know how much you've watched him, coming into this draft. I mean, we've all heard about him. And there's a tendency as we get closer to this thing to start wondering aloud. Could this just simply be that the hype has snowballed to such a point that there's no way this guy could possibly approach everything that is being predicted for him as a ceiling? Given the people you talk to around the league, is there overhype here? Where could he come up short? How could he come up short?
Well, injuries, obviously. I mean, that's the easy one. That is. Look, he's not the thickest individual yet. He's got some work to do to put on some muscle. I think his floor is pretty high, but I mean, of guys hyped like this, how many of them do? I mean, LeBron lived up to the hype, but I mean, how many do it? Did Andrew Luck live up to the hype? I'm trying to think of other sports where guys came in, oh, this guy's a lock. And it's like a lot of things kind of have to go your way. And so he puts in the work. He seems to have a good mindset. He certainly has the skills. I think he's going to have an immediate impact defensively. I think his floor is really high. Like, I think his floor is still all-star. But the otherworldly hype for him, I mean, maybe I hope he lives up to it. I hope he proves me wrong. But he could have a very good borderline Hall of Fame career, and we'd be like, did he really live up to the hype? I mean, it's kind of crazy right now.
Right, and that's what I mean. I mean, people have set the expectations so high. I watch ESPN. They've got a million, different features on him and all these different guys talking about him. I mean, and let's be honest. The dude's going to have a bullseye on his back from day one that he gets into the league. Like, I mean, nobody has had, maybe since LeBron, since Zion. I don't know. I mean, has anybody this guy's going to have a huge bullseye on him, and he's playing for a team that's not that good, so the focus can be on him. I mean, he's well prepared. I mean, San Antonio is a great spot for somebody like him, but I don't know. I feel like in some regards, and it's the age-old thing, we build somebody up and then we watch them as they get torn down, or we're the ones that tear them down.
Exactly. And I think going to San Antonio helps with that. Like you said, they will bring him on a little slowly, frankly. They're like, hey, man, if Scoot wins Rookie of the Year, fine. Like, whatever. Like, they're not going to care about that stuff. They're going to be big picture with him. They're not going to push it. And I think that's the wise move. That's like, this is a team that brought along when Tim Duncan was kind of a special player, but more importantly, like the Kawhi Leonards of the world, the Tony Parker's like, hey, man, we'll take a few years and we'll get you there. I mean, Tony Parker was later in the draft, Manu Ginobili was later in the draft, but we can take our time. We can get you there. We don't need to rush this. And I think that's their mindset. They're not winning next year. I know there were talking heads. Oh, they should make the playoffs instantly, man. LeBron won 35 games his first year. Tim Duncan, I think, not Duncan, but a bunch of the stars, like if you start going back, like 35 is kind of the benchmark. Let's just see where they're at. After that, in a couple of years, we'll see where he is.
What do you make of the Draymond Green situation? Is it as simple as, hey, they're going to get this worked out and he winds up back in Golden State? Or is there a real possibility that a team comes in and tries to blow him away with an offer? I said last night on the show, Kurt, to me, I don't want to hear the Warriors say they want Draymond back. If they want him back, then they have to make him an otherworldly offer that probably is more than he should be getting paid to prove that they do indeed want him back. Otherwise, it's just trying to appease the fan base and trying to make it look to the fan base like you tried to keep him when you really don't want to.
Jason, you just traded Jordan Poole. Good job. Which I think is... I honestly, could both of them play together? I'm not sure they can do that next year. Like, I'm with you. They've got to bring Draymond back, and they've got to figure out a number that works for both sides because they are headed deep into the tax. They got to have this conversation in the fall when Klay Thompson is extension eligible, and he's just not a $40 million a year near max player anymore. And so how do you start to lower those numbers? But they can't win without him. They have to bring him back.
They're not going to win with him, Kurt. They're not going to win with him. I'm going to sound like Adrian and Rocky. You can't win. I don't think they win with him. I think the run is over. I think the Warriors will be the last ones to admit it. They will languish and be a first, second round team. They don't go any further than that for the next couple of years. And then in a couple of years, the realization is they got to rebuild. Clay, Steph gets traded to Charlotte and finishes his career there. And we watch the slow disintegration of this thing. Or you tear the Band-Aid off now, let Draymond go. Clay goes at the end of next year and you start the rebuild.
I don't think they're going to do it that way. I think that they become one of those teams. Look, they're going to, you know what they are, though? I don't think they're that bad. Like, they are one of those teams where if everything goes just right for them, they got a chance. You need Clay to be special. You need a healthy Draymond Green because his passing is still an all defensive league team player. He is still a great secondary passer. If they can get Andrew Wiggins kind of back to form and stuff.
You think if that team was all healthy this year and got to play and had a decent regular,
they don't beat a healthy
they're not
Denver.
beating Denver. They're not beating Denver.
No, they're not beating a healthy Denver, but look, Denver's going to have a down year at some point in the next 5 years. And if it's next year and the Warriors are clicking, stranger things have happened. I don't think they're going to win any more titles, honestly, but I don't think that they are tear it down yet. But you got to bring back. The problem is just the balance of bringing back Draymond versus the money. Like it's going to get stupid expensive under the new CBA really fast.
Yeah, it is. Kurt Hanlon, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. You have a draft consensus coming out tomorrow. Is that what you said to me?
I'm hoping to get through the entire first round. Just I'm not a scout. I am not going to pretend to be a scout. I have not watched film on all these guys deep enough to try to do it anyway. But I can look at other drafts and put together a little consensus of where things are going to land. So that'll be up tomorrow morning at NBCSports.com.
Kurt Hanlon, always appreciate it, my friend. Have a great night. What part of it you get to enjoy? Because I know you said you're going to be up late. Always appreciate it, my friend.
Hey, anytime. Take care, man.
Kurt Hanlon. Then what's the point? What's the point if you're LeBron and coming back and putting yourself through the hell of another season to go and lose to that team again in 4 or 5 games? Because I got news for you. After watching them play against Denver, I'm convinced they could play them, 21 times, and they're probably only winning 4 or 5 of them. Denver is that much better than them. NBA draft. There's all sorts of odds out there for the draft. It's all basic common sense in terms of the number 1 overall pick. Here you go. Ready for this? Victor Wembanyama is minus 50,000 to be the number 1 pick tomorrow night. Do you know what that means? It means you'd have to wager $50,000 to win $100. To bet that Victor Wembanyama is the top pick in the draft, you would have to wager $50,000. You'd have to wager $250,000 to win $500 on Wembanyama tomorrow night. Where it gets interesting is the second pick. And right now, Brandon Miller is minus 650 to be the second overall pick. Scoot Henderson is plus 370. So if you're looking for some action, some value, Scoot at number 2 at plus 370 could be an option. And then Scoot is minus 480 to be the number 3 pick. So Vegas is basically telling you where they think these guys are going to go. Wemby number 1, Brandon Miller 2, Scoot Henderson 3. We'll see if they're right. Another hour of the cash-in is right around the corner on SportsMap Radio. Oh, dear God. You gotta do me a favor. Ask me that, because I forget half of what I talk about by the time I get to it. Yeah. Trying to think. Let me think. No. I will say no. First segment from hour 1, the Lon McCarron interview. That's about it that I could think of. Yeah, I'm here. Let's go! Final hour of a Wednesday/Thursday edition of the show. Good to be with you. SportsMap Radio. SportsMap Radio app. So many things. So many things running through my head right now. It's hard to hold it all together sometimes. I'm not going to lie to y'all. Sometimes it is very difficult to keep all of my thoughts in place. I'm fully engrossed. I'm not going to lie. I am fully engrossed in this Coachella Valley Firebirds story. It really, I'm telling you, 10 years from now, there's going to be like a movie or a book written about this thing. First year team in the AHL. First season in the league, they're playing in their 99th game of the year. And it's game 7 of the Calder Cup final. And I don't care, look, I'm going to say something. I don't care if it's the NHL, the AHL, the ECHL, the UHL, the pickup hockey league down the street, high school hockey. There is nothing better on this planet than a winner-take-all. A winner-take-all game for a championship. I mean, it is literally winner-take-all. It's not even win or go home because after this game, both teams are going home. The season's over. It's the final game of the season for the AHL. And here is this team that plays out here in the desert where there's not a single hockey rink to be found anywhere. And in their first year in the AHL, the Kraken's AHL affiliate, in 20 minutes, they're either going to be champions or it's going to be a terrible ending to an amazing season. They're one of the best drawing teams in the league. Every game of the playoffs has basically had over 10,000 people selling out the brand new arena they play in out here. And they're going against a team that's been around a long time in the Hershey Bears, the Washington Capitals AHL affiliate. And the start of the third period just got underway. 2-2 Hershey and Coachella Valley. And it's on NHL Network, so you could actually watch it. At least I'm pretty sure it's on NHL Network. I know it's on locally in Seattle on Root Sports up there. It's pretty awesome, though. I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty damn cool to have a local team playing for a championship, even if it is, the AHL, and people will kind of laugh at it. But it's pretty wild. I'm trying to see if I can find it. I don't even know if we get NHL Network out here. I don't know if YouTube TV carries NHL wrestling, AHL hockey. They do carry New Japan Pro Wrestling, though, apparently, if I want to watch that. It's amazing all the things you could find on TV. There's so many channels out there now. And if you ever wanted to wonder or understand why ratings are down for so many things, it's not because people aren't interested. It's just because people have more options. I say this all the time. Chris Rock saying. You know the Chris Rock saying, right, Charles? Charles? I said, you know the Chris Rock saying, right? About options? Man's only as faithful as his options. And it's the same thing when it comes to what's on TV. I mean, there's so many options today that you don't have to, the days of having I remember the days of having a cable box with 36 channels on it. 3 rows, 36 channels. You'd slide the tab up and down to row 1, row 2, or row 3, and then you'd push the button on the box that corresponded to that channel. There were 36 channels, and HBO was part of it, and it was free. You didn't have to pay extra for it. I remember the days, but it's true. And when you had 36 channels, the options were limited. Now I could literally watch TV that's on in Singapore. I could watch Korean TV. I could watch Chinese TV. I could watch Russian TV. I could watch anything I want So this idea of, people aren't watching this or people aren't watching that. No, but they're watching something. I said, you know what channel I want to start, Charles? I own a content creation company. We are a media and production company and a content production company. I probably shouldn't say this because somebody's going to steal the idea. Did you know that 80% of the country, 80% of adults in the United States drink at least 2 cups of coffee a day? Did you know that? Yet there is not a single channel on TV dedicated to coffee. I know I'm onto something. I talked about it with my business partners. I said there should be a channel just dedicated to coffee, all things coffee, built around coffee. Telling you. There's literally a channel for everything except that. Remember, does the Eternal Word Television Network still exist? EWTN. Remember that old nun that used to be on every night? Sister Catherine. I think her name was like Sister Catherine or something like that. She used to be on all the time. There was a channel for that, and people watched. Pat Robertson hosted the 700 Club forever. If I just sat here and ran down the list of the names of channels on YouTube TV, and I don't even have like a special package or anything, you would quickly understand why the ratings are down. Because TV, much like baseball pitching, TV has become specialized. TV has become very specific, very specialized. Just like, special righty relievers, lefty relievers, submariners, fastball pitchers, sinker pitchers. You need a ground ball, you bring this guy in. TV's become the same way. You can now find specifically what it is you're looking for. It's not just watch sports anymore. No. You want to watch tennis? You watch the tennis channel. It's not just watching golf on a sports channel anymore. No. You turn on the golf channel. Used to be that was all in one place. Now it's everywhere. There's a million different channels that carry it. Or it has a specific channel that carries it. Used to be ABC, CBS, Fox. ABC, CBS, CBS. ABC, CBS, NBC. There you go. Now it's Fox, CW, PBS, Ion Television, Comet. I grew up, Comet was like a baking soda or something. Wasn't that soap? I think it still is. Now it's a channel. Yeah, now it's a channel. There's a channel called Comet. I'm sure you could find MASH, like WeTV. Like there's TV there is a channel that shows nothing but old shows from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You could watch Andy Griffith. You could watch there's something literally for every Matlock, Columbo. Yeah, go get you some Columbo. You can find it all. You don't even have to pay for it anymore. There's Pluto, which Pluto is amazing for people who are cheap and don't want to, put the money out there or trying to be frugal. Pluto is fantastic. It is literally free cable. Have you ever checked Pluto? Pluto's amazing. Yes, Tubi is another one. Really? It's not like the Zion Williamson movie we were talking about last night, is it? Okay, all right, I'm just checking. There's beIN Sports. There's beIN Sports Extra. There's the Big Ten Network. Not only is there the tennis channel, now there's T2, their new streaming channel. There's wrestling. There's channels geared towards wrestling. There's a billiards TV channel. It's crazy. That's true. They were one of the first, they modeled that after MLB's app that has all the MLB games on it. And it was brilliant. And people thought, oh my God, who's going to do that? And then eventually they morphed it in with Peacock. So now you get it if you get Peacock, but it's been fantastic for them. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Channels for sports betting. There's cartoon channels. There's like 6 different Nickelodeons now. I remember there used to be one Nickelodeon. Watch Double Dare. I mean, really. There's AMC, there's BBC, there's BBC America, there's BET. No, now there's BET Her. In case you want to watch Tyler Perry's Sisters. I mean, really. Something for everybody, man. Something for everybody. There's FX. There's FXX. There's FXM. Remember when there was just FX? And I thought that was, wow, what a cool channel. Now there's FXX, FXmen, FXM. Dude, there's 3 Hallmark channels because one isn't enough. I need my Golden Girls on 3 different Hallmark channels. There's a reason why the ratings aren't what they used to be on television. Not because people aren't watching. It's because there's so much you can watch. Man's only as faithful as his options. We're back with more. Night in Baseball next. They still get paid, man. As long as the check clears. Shit, man. I'm going to be putting my TV show on like a billion different channels, most of which you've probably not heard of. And as long as the friggin' ad dollars clear and the check clears, I don't give a shit. Well, if I'm making $500,000 a year to put a show on, 250 different channels and enough people are watching all of those channels, then great. I was just talking about this with somebody tonight, and I don't mind talking about it. Radio is like dying bad. That's the truth. The only reason it's surviving now is because it's gotten to the point where stations have literally gotten to the point where everybody makes minimum wage. They sell the ad, they sell the time. Good to have you with us tonight. 10:42 to go in the third period. The final game of the professional hockey season. Hershey and Coachella Valley tied at 2 with 10:41 to go in the third period. Somebody's going home a winner and somebody's just going home. It's awesome. One game left in baseball. The San Francisco Giants are winning again. What in the Sam hell is going on in Major League Baseball? The whole world of baseball is just upside down. Oh, somebody tells me, by the way, Dave in Connecticut, our P1 of P1s, says FXXX would be for adults. Very good. Matlock Channel, MTV. There's a zillion MTVs. MTV Urban, MTV Rap, MTV Rock. There's a million MTVs now. Pluto is amazing. Dave, I already have checked out Pluto. It's fantastic. And you know, and I'll tell you one more thing on this, and then I promise I'll get off it because I want to get to the night in baseball because there's some big stories going on. Do you know how easy it is now to just have your own TV channel? Seriously, do you know how, Charles, you could create a TV channel. We'll call it Charles TV. We'll call it Charles in Charge TV. I'm dead serious. You could create a TV channel. Anybody can now on these OTT streaming platforms and stuff like that. It's crazy. Anybody can make a TV channel. I don't know. Dave in Connecticut, is there live odds on this Coachella Valley Hershey game? Let me know. See, Dave, if you could find that, I'll be curious to know. I know it's not on FanDuel, but I was curious to see if there was any live odds on this AHL Game 7 Calder Cup final game. I'm not going to lie. If I could, I would stop the show right now and just flip the bird to, VEASAN, because I want to watch the end of this game. This is my home team. This is the team in my backyard. Well, Charles do the rest of the show. Charles, see, there you are. I thought you passed out by the board or something. Okay, just checking. Major League Baseball tonight. Cincinnati Reds have won 11 games in a row. They won again tonight. And by the way, the Reds are 40-35. They've won 11 in a row, and they still have a negative run differential. All you need to know about the NL Central, baby. Baseball at its most mediocre. Instead of baseball at its fight, we'll call it Major League Baseball at its most mediocre. The Reds have scored 362 runs. They have given up 376. But they've won 11 in a row, and they're in first place. Barely, but they're still in first place. And the Giants are about to win their 10th in a row. Who had those two things on their baseball bingo card for this year? The Giants winning 10 in a row at any point this season, and the Cincinnati Reds winning 11 in a row at any point this season. Put your hand down. You're lying. And say, how about this? Who had the Reds in first place at 40-35, 75 games into the season, and the Cardinals in dead last at 31-44? It's just crazy. It just defies logic. It really does. But that's where we are right now. And it's halfway through we're almost halfway through the baseball season. So at this point, you have to take it seriously. Marlins. Diamondbacks were on the come. I think there's two teams that are early to the party this year. The Diamondbacks are one, the Orioles are another. Both of those teams are early. Both of them were going in the right direction. I still think Arizona's got issues when it comes to the starting rotation. And if they're going to do anything, they're going to have to make a move in as far as the rotation is concerned. But the Reds won again tonight. The Reds at 40-35, I mean, are what? 2 games worse than the Yankees. Who had that 74 games into the season? Now, the Yankees have been hit with injuries, but you know what? Every team's got injuries. By the way, speaking of the Yankees, oh, you didn't think we were going to forget about the Yankees tonight, did you? You didn't think we were going to forget about the Bronx Bombers, did you? Never.
Deep to right field, going back.
Jake Bowers, acting like Hank Bauer.
Deep to right field, going back. Hernandez turning, looking, see ya. A 2-run home run for Bowers. Yankees up 2-0.
Well, Anthony Volpe was not running on that pitch, but you knew Castillo was paying attention to Volpe at first, and he gave Bowers a fastball, middle, down, and in.
Yankees get to Luis Castillo tonight. And by the way, Jake Bowers, not the only Yankee to hit a home run tonight.
Driven out to left field, deep, going back, Kelnick, turning, looking, see ya! Home run number 10 for Volpe.
He's got 10 home runs. He's only hitting like 195, but he has 10 home runs this year. I mean, Anthony Volpe's on a pace for a 20 home run season in his rookie year. The kid can hit. The Yankees, you know what? The Yankees are doing the prudent thing. You send this kid down, and I know it shouldn't destroy his confidence, but if the Yankees send this kid down, he may never make it back. With all the hype that he came with this year because of a great spring training, if the Yankees send him down, they got all sorts of problems. They beat a good pitcher tonight. Luis Castillo, that's a good win. Astros won tonight, beat the Mets 10-8. Just figuring out ways. Astros just figuring out ways to win games right now without Yordan. That Giants game, by the way, is bottom of the 8th. Giants 4, Padres 2 tonight. Rays got a win over the Orioles tonight, 7-2. We already told you. Luis Arraez had a couple of hits tonight. He's hitting .398. Marlins lost at home to the Blue Jays. The Reds, by the way, we told you earlier they won. 5-3 was the final score. This was the big blow in the game.
Play Fraley to pull on the infield. Right-handed pitcher, left-handed batter. Fraley yanks it to right toward the corner, and it is gone! Fraley lines it out of here, and the Reds are on top 5-3.
Well, you could hang every shirt in this ballpark on that clothesline. That was a laser.
Things you only hear. Can we take things you only hear in baseball play-by-play for 100, Alex? You could have hung that. You could have hung laundry on that line. Things you only hear in baseball games, right? Ugh, God. Scripts. Anybody who scripts anything in play-by-play should not be allowed to do play-by-play. Like the Jim Nantz scripting of final calls drives me nuts. Anybody who scripts like a championship call, you shouldn't be allowed. You should not be allowed. You should not be allowed to do play-by. I did play-by-play, so that's a pet peeve of mine. You just can't. You can't do it. The whole idea is to be spontaneous in the moment. You know, to feel it in that moment. By the way, the Cubs are starting to play well, too. Cubs are only 2 games under 500. And that NL Central is going to be so much fun, and it's going to be so mediocre. But I don't care, because it means every team in that division is going to have a chance. When we get to August, all those teams are going to be in the mix. Absolutely. I'm rooting for chaos. I want it to be tied in the Electoral College, so it has to go to the House of Representatives. I am that guy. I'm the guy who on election night is rooting for a tie with the electoral map so that it goes to the House of Representatives and buildings are burning all over America. That's me. Yep, I'm that guy. I'm the problem. It's me. My boy Ezekiel Tovar come back yet for the Rockies? No, he's still on paternity leave. Can I just say, I'm going to get crushed for this. I am not a fan of paternity leave. Maternity leave? Absolutely. Let him take a year off. But the dad of the kid taking getting days and months and all that stuff off? No, I'm not buying that. Somebody got to be working. There's a controversy in the World Series of Poker. We'll get to it next with Lon McCarron. Come on, paternity leave? Yay or nay? Come on. Come on. Mom can stay home. Dad, go to work. The evil eye I just got from my husband for saying that. You got a problem over there? Why? Why?
It's so sexist.
It is not sexist.
Men need to parent as well.
They can parent when they get home from work. See, now I'm going to be divorced by the end of the night. It's all over. It's all over. You get a weekend, kid. Rub some dirt on it. Maternity leave, it depends on the country. No, it depends. It honestly, it depends. And that in that case, it depends on the company. There is no universal maternity leave law in the U.S. that I know of. Right, Sean? Yeah, it's state by state, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it just depends on the state.
It would be putting an actual mark or indentation on a physical card on the back of it that you could later identify if some other player were holding that same card. And there are a number of ways, apparently, that you can do it. One is a physical indentation somewhere that perhaps only you would notice, or you can put a substance on the card that could possibly be read by special sunglasses or perhaps even contact lenses. Wow. Or a physical something that makes a little imperfection in the card that you can see visibly. So that's what I've heard. There may be other ways, but that is kind of a going concern right now with Martin.
Is this something, though, as somebody who's been around the sport for a long time and been around the game for a long time and been around poker pros and, it has real in-depth knowledge of this stuff. Is this something that you've heard of frequently? Is it something that, this is the first time you've heard of a pro doing it? Try and give me some perspective on, how often you hear of these things.
Historically, I've heard about it happening in non-tournament. It would be putting an actual mark or indentation on a physical card on the back of it that you could later identify if some other player were holding that same card. And there are a number of ways, apparently, that you can do it. One is a physical indentation somewhere that perhaps only you would notice, or you can put a substance on the card that could possibly be read by special sunglasses or perhaps even contact lenses. Wow. Or a physical something that makes a little imperfection in the card that you can see visibly. So that's what I've heard. There may be other ways, but that is kind of a going concern right now with Martin.
Is this something, though, as somebody who's been around the sport for a long time and been around the game for a long time and been around poker pros and, it has real in-depth. All right, let's bring in Lon McCarron, World Series of Poker on CBS Sports. There is a controversy in poker that is going on with Martin Cabral. Did he cheat? Did he not cheat? Is he marking cards? Lon, tell us what marking cards exactly is.
It would be putting an actual mark or indentation on a physical card on the back of it that you could later identify if some other player were holding that same card. And there are a number of ways, apparently, that you can do it. One is a physical indentation somewhere that perhaps only you would notice, or you can put a substance on the card that could possibly be read by special sunglasses or perhaps even contact lenses.
Wow.
Or a physical something that makes a little imperfection in the card that you can see visibly. So that's what I've heard. There may be other ways, but that is kind of a going concern right now with Martin.
Is this something, though, as somebody who's been around the sport for a long time and been around the game for a long time and been around poker pros and, it has real in-depth knowledge of this stuff. Is this something that you've heard of frequently? Is it something that, this is the first time you've heard of a pro doing it? Like, try and give me some perspective on, how often you hear of these things.
Historically, I've heard about it happening in non-tournament poker games that we call cash games, where they have private games or games that are not live streamed or televised. The fact that the accusations are coming and they're saying he's doing this when you've got a worldwide audience watching this live is a little extraordinary in the sense that Martin Cabral certainly knows who's watching, not only the people, but the other players who are not in the tournament directors, tournament officials, Caesars Corporation, who owns the World Series of Poker. They're all watching this. So the fact that he was accused of doing it post-haste, and the fact that some of the decks were taken out of play during the final table of this event and checked and nothing found, leads one to believe that Martin might be playing his reputation for all it's worth.
Yeah, he might be just trolling people and almost, and as much as anybody, poker's a psychological game. I mean, if you could have people believing that you're trying to get an upper hand, it's almost as lethal as if you actually were cheating.
Exactly. And that's where this story has gone now, where because there is no physical evidence for Martin to do what he does, and because there have been prior allegations for Martin doing this, and because Martin is very, very aware of these allegations and how players react to this speech aggravating, annoying type of activity that he's doing by standing up when it's his turn to act and pretending or actually looking at an opponent's cards, gets them thinking that maybe he's looking for the mark he put on it. So he could be, as they call, leveling. He knows what they know, what he knows. There's all these kind of levels, how many who knows he knows type levels there are. So, and that's where it's gone, because a lot of pros are saying, yes, there was no evidence on the cards of him marking the cards, or even with a sticky substance. In some clips, you can see him picking up his finger and the card kind of coming with him for a fraction of an inch or so. Now they're taking on the tack that it is beyond the pale and beyond the World Series guidelines of how you conduct yourself by fake cheating, as it were, and getting into people's heads. But that is a very gray area, and it's one that the World Series of Poker officials really can't take to the bank right now to ban the people. And I must say, they are taking this very seriously. They have it under consideration. But like any casino, they're not going to tell you how they know what they know, or ultimately what they know. If they ban a player, it'll be up to the player or the gambler, if it's outside the house, to tell everybody what's going on. So they're going to be pretty mum, and that's just the casino world.
Yeah, and you know what the reality is of this, Lon? Who would be dumb enough with all the cameras that are in these casinos, especially at something like the World Series of Poker? Who's going to be dumb enough to literally sit there and cheat with all the video that's available to these guys, all the surveillance? I find it hard to believe that this isn't just Martin Cabral, basically trolling everybody because they think he might be, cheating, or he might have some upper hand. I don't know. I'm curious to see
No,
what
I agree
the
with you.
investigation reveals.
I'm in your camp on that, Jason, because the players when they busted out of the tournament in their post game interview saying he's rude, he's annoying, he's been doing this a long time, and Justin Bonomo, a very famous top pro who has a strong opinion on a lot of things, came out and was talking today about that aspect of him taking on this persona and expanding it in the biggest moments. And this was the biggest buy-in tournament. It took $250,000 just to enter the tournament for each player. So there's a lot of money up for grabs. And he was saying if he's going to be using this persona and then exacerbating it at these moments, that crosses a line of fairness, as it were. But again, I think it's a wide gray area, and I don't know that you can ban a player because there can be some legal ramifications against casinos, and Caesars if they were to do that without any strong evidence, whether you're just being a bad guy. And we've seen guys in the past who are big talkers, Jamie Gold and William Kassouf. They made a rule for Jamie Gold years ago, the Jamie Gold rule, the year after he won the main event in 06. He talked his way into a lot of hands and pots and everything like that. And they said they kind of cut down on the speech play. And then Will Kassouf came a few years ago and kind of redefined it. And now maybe there's just another aspect of that.
How has the World Series of Poker and the poker world come out of COVID?
Healthy, very healthy. People were pining for live poker when things started opening up, and the fields all around the world, the live events were huge. Tournament directors were overrun with players trying to keep the players who filled the tables and then alternates who are waiting to get into tournaments after seats opened up. The World Series is really planning on beating their record for the biggest main event attendance ever. They're probably looking at 10,000 plus players at the main event this year. The fields in the other events that began in May and going all through June and beginning July and all the way through the middle of July, they're having tremendous fields, and the purses are up, the people are there, and everybody's happy in the new venue as well. So so far so good.
Before I let you go, I haven't talked to you I haven't talked to you on camera in a while. I wanted to get a thought from you on, this World Series poker, which I think now will be the first one without Doyle Brunson. In terms of, since his passing, you've been around this game a long time. Talk about what he meant to the game and how his passing obviously impacts so many people.
Yeah, Doyle Brunson was not just impactful on the game. He was the game. And we are trying to compare him to sports legends, like Babe Ruth, Bobby Orr, Maurice Richard in hockey, whatever. And he even goes beyond that because he was there from the beginning of the World Series of Poker. And it is all him. What poker is today has come so much on the shoulders of Doyle Brunson and what he has thought was good for the game. He's always has been in contact with the World Series of Poker folks and World Poker Tour. Any other major poker tour owes a lot to Doyle and how the game was shaped, how the tournaments were shaped, what should be happening for the good of the players, for the good of the event, etc. And so it's one of the few guys, literally, you cannot say enough good about what Doyle meant to the game and how much he meant to the game. And one of the greatest aspects of that is that you look at who he played with and who he beat, and you got old grainy black and white photos. You've got photos from the beginning of the poker boom in 2003, 4, and 5. And right up to this year or late last year, he's playing the highest stakes poker with the best players in the world, giving them the needle. He tweeted out a picture. He says, I played like 80 straight days in Bobby's room, a cash game in Vegas. And thanks to the guys, he tweeted a picture of a new Cadillac Escalade he had won. He had bought from the money he had won from them. So he still had the needle right to the end, still had his spark, still had, the skills needed to be a successful poker player right to the end. And he's going to be sorely missed. He was a great guy.
music in the background for the entire show. I think that'd be really cool. Have to see if we can get away with that. All right, there is big news in sports tonight before we leave you. We told you the Wizards and Celtics, come hell or high water, they were going to figure out a way to get this Porzingis deal done. And they have. This is now a blockbuster. So Porzingis is going to opt into his $36 million contract for next year. The Wizards, Celtics, and Grizzlies get this deal done. Marcus Smart is headed out of Boston. Yes, thank you. He's going to the Grizzlies. So he basically becomes an upgrade and a better version of Dylan Brooks. I mean, that's what they've basically done. Oh, I think Marcus Smart's going to be great for that team. I really do. I love that move. I don't think there's any losers in this deal. I really don't. Look, it'll all play out next year and we'll find out. But on the surface, to me, this feels like it feels to me like a win-win-win. Now, the Wizards want to get rid of all this expensive players and bring in, draft picks and things like that. They get Tyus Jones, who's not a bad guard. And he'll be able to kind of grow and flourish. They'll probably put up some good numbers there. It'll be fun to watch him play, 35 minutes a night and see what he can do, because I've loved the flashes that we saw of him coming off the bench in Memphis, especially when Ja Morant wasn't playing. So Marcus Smart to the Grizzlies, Porzingis to the Celtics, Tyus Jones to the Wizards. The Wizards also get Danilo Gallinari. Congratulations, Gallo. You go from Atlanta to Boston, where you thought you were going to be playing on a contender. Then you don't get to play at all because you hurt yourself. And then you find yourself on a losing team in Washington. And Mike Muscala is just happy to have a job in the NBA. So he goes to the Wizards and he doesn't really care. The Grizzlies are sending the number 25 pick in Thursday night's draft and a 2024 first-round pick via the Golden State Warriors to the Celtics. All of this, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, give him credit on the reporting. The Celtics are sending the 35th pick on Thursday to the Wizards in the deal. And as I mentioned at the top, Porzingis is opting in. He will make $36 million next season. So a deal that originally looked like it would be the Celtics, Clippers, and Wizards, that would have seen Malcolm Brogdon going. Now Malcolm Brogdon is staying in Boston, at least for now. Sorry, not sorry. Oh, you know that whole thing about we were trading you? Yeah, it's not happening anymore. We love you again. That's the tricky part when this stuff gets out in the public, gets reported. How do you heal that? How do you mend that fence? I don't know. So that's the first sort of domino to fall tonight as far as news just before the end of the show. Then Bucks forward Chris Middleton declined his player option for next season. He was slated to make $40 million next year. Averaged 15 points, 4.2 rebounds, 4.9 assists a game. He thinks he's worth more than that? Did I miss something? Squeeze me? Baking soda? I just don't get it. And he had a good postseason. He played well in the playoffs. 24 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, 6 assists. But there is still thought that he will come back. According to Shams Charania and Eric Nem at The Athletic, the thought process is still that Middleton will wind up back, or could wind up back in Milwaukee. If not, you wonder who's vying for his services. They shouldn't be the favorites anyway. I don't know why they'd be the favorites anyway. I know they had some injuries in the playoffs and Giannis being hurt and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, I mean, you got to find a way to beat the Heat. You got to find a way to beat the Heat. They fire their head coach. You got a new head coach. You got a new dynamic in place. Frankly, if I could say there is no favorite in the East, I would go with that. I really would. There isn't anybody that I consider a prohibitive favorite out of the East right now. Especially considering that we don't even know what's going on in Philadelphia with James Harden. What were you going to say? If I was going to lean anywhere, it would be Boston. If you put the proverbial gun to my head, I'd say it's Boston. Yeah, and I mean, he was a huge part of their defensive identity. But Porzingis does different things for you defensively in the middle, too. You know, it gives them a different presence in the middle. Al Horford is pretty much, 2 cinder blocks on his feet. He can't get off the ground. So, now you have a defensive presence in the middle. Porzingis can block shots and change and alter shots. I'm not saying he's a two-way player or anything like that, but very interesting. So Chris Middleton will be a free agent. Can you believe he's been in the league? He was drafted in 2012. I'm telling you, where does the time go? Where'd the 3 hours tonight go? It's gone. I'm still watching. And this Firebird, this Hershey Firebirds, this Hershey Bears, Coachella Valley Firebirds AHL Game 7 is actually in overtime. I mean, what's better than a Game 7 for a championship? A Game 7 that goes to overtime. And the home team, the Coachella Valley Firebirds, are actually on the power play right now with a chance to try and win it on the power play. Soon, I'm telling you, this show can't, I'm not lying to you folks, this show can't end fast enough. If we could play the music out right now, I'd say, let's go. Because I want to go watch the end of this game. I don't care if it's AHL, like I said earlier. Game 7, packed arena, 2 best teams in the league. I mean, sign me up, man. No matter how this ends, it's going to be fun. And I will guarantee it, to quote Vince McMahon, I will guarantee it. Whoever scores the winning goal in this game, it will be a top play on SportsCenter. You'll see it somewhere on SportsCenter. May not be till the morning because I don't know if they're going to keep everybody around tonight waiting for this game to end. But you'll see it. You'll see it tomorrow on SportsCenter Top 10. This will wind up being one of the plays of the night. So this is the last time we work together this week, Charles, right? Since I'm off on Friday and you're off tomorrow, right? Okay. It's all right. Not the last day ever. No. Just realized I had a dog at my feet. He has. All of a sudden I look down and he's just laying at my feet. I wish I had a camera. I wish I had an extra camera. I'd put it on him right now so everybody could see it. By the way, it went final. Giants win tonight. Beat the Padres 4-2. So the Giants have won 10 in a row. The Reds have won 11 in a row. The Braves have won 7 in a row. And the AL, the longest winning streak right now, is 3 games. All the big streaks are out in the National League. Wild stuff, man. Absolutely wild stuff. It's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Thank you, Charles Carter, producer, engineer, pushing all the buttons in Houston. We'll see you next week. Thank you to Lon McCarron, voice of the World Series of Poker on CBS Sports / Paramount Plus. Good to talk to him, my old buddy. We're back with you tomorrow, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Final show of the week. I'm off on Friday. Headed to Seattle for a few days. Stay tuned. I'm Jason Page. That's the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Bye. Thank you. Have a good night, man. All right. Bye.
Nice cross. The cork of the line.
All right, I got to go for our video audience because I got to go watch the end of this hockey game. And you all have a great night. Stay safe. I'll see you back here tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app, all of our video platforms. Have yourselves a good night.